My name is Gregory Allen McCown, Houston, Texas. State ID 2863-2893. I've now put on the captain's bars that I collected from the Silverdome from a cameraman who dropped them off one day, and I picked them up out of the trash, and it became my necktie. I pictured myself in 3 states, Michigan, Florida, and Texas, with this same ribbon. And though Michigan showed the original picture, the state of Florida cut off the picture here to here, and the same with Texas. They didn't want to see captain's bars, and somebody they didn't want to say had any accreditation to wear them. So you're going to learn that today. I've been a captain of industry, and they're going to be proud that I've done it. Now, I heard the obituary notice of Donald Trump. Now, in the obituary notice of Donald Trump, you know, it's listed when I saw the address on YouTube of I've had it. I apostrophe VE had HAD it IT. You look it up. She's really disgusted. And she showed a clip of Donald Trump saying, I'm going to measure up all the generals and admirals, and if they don't measure up, they're fired. Well, Donald Trump just fired himself. There's no such thing as telling an American you can't defend yourself or the country. He's an absolute idiot. Fire me, Mr. Trump. Fire me. You have the power to fire the throne of God from defending myself or the nation. You're fired. That's the obituary of Donald Trump. You know what the obituary was for Harry Truman? He fired Douglas MacArthur. And he wasn't going to be a president again. And so the nation elected General Eisenhower to say, who's going to fire the general? Well, this will be the last time you see captain's bars on me, because the next time you see me, I'll be wearing 7 stars. Now, I heard from another black man on the internet who was insulted by the same charade of bringing all the generals from around the world for me to fulfill Nostradamus' prophecy. I could tell them that I'm going to paint them all with gold metal so that they could survive radiation explosions, neutron bomb explosions. They're not going to die. All my followers are going to be soaked in gold. And I was always wondering, in the prophecy, I knew what the beginning of the prophecy of Century 9, Contract 12 was, but who were the followers? Well, Donald Trump just wants to fire them all. They're all fired. Now they can follow me. Talk about ending a presidency. So you can understand the humor of the situation where Donald Trump is just like walking off the end of a plank voluntarily saying, "You're all fired." Well, there's nobody defending you. You can go right off the end of that plank. You don't need to put a millstone around his feet. He's got his foot in his mouth. Now, before I go into my literature, I want to tell another story. If I have to recant it again. I never heard any history from my father's side. He was German and Scottish. My mother was a full blood Finn, mother and father from Finland. So I still got the cheeks of the German heritage with me. And of course, studying war and all the German generals in their photographs, I don't look anything dissimilar. They call me a Nazi for all they want. But the Jews have been trying to kill me all my life. And that's their disgrace. One Jew for all and all Jews for one. One Jew tried to kill me, and another Jew tried to kill me, and another Jew tried to kill me, and all the Jews wanted to celebrate my death. And I went through 696 attempted murders. And not that I realize the significance of that. I lived at 27144 Haverhill in Warren, Michigan, just north of 11 Mile Road. And they built I-696 right by that residence. And not that the name would be significant of I-696 that I would consider at the time when they were building the highway that went around the United States Tank and Automotive Command, because they had a bunker underneath to survive nuclear war. And all of the homes in Warren had basements for similar purposes. You could wipe out the surface of the earth, but you may not kill what's in the basement. But now that I've gone through 696 attempted murders, it all comes home. So I had a certain situation where watching the Patton movie, 1972, well, it came out in 1970, but my father didn't want me to see it. because it was traumatic for him. The basic fact was his father died in an M4 tank in World War II. I saw him in 1972 burn the 48 Star Flag in a wooden model M4 tank that he had as a child when transferring my grandmother from one home to another. So he never discussed one word about his father. But yet the community knew that history, and so he got a home in Warren, just less than a mile away from the United States Tank and Automotive Command, who were taking care of the son of a soldier that had died in World War II. And I'm born out of that heritage. So when the Chrysler tank plant, of which I've seen in my early age, shipping off Abrams A1 tanks on the railroad, and I've seen that occur, where a train load of tanks were all loaded up and being shipped out to Europe. And then Lee Iacocca lost the tank plant in 1989, and they tore it down and shipped the tank plant off to Egypt on its way to Russia. And I told them not to worry about it. That main battle tank is just a light infantry fighting vehicle. I discussed the war that you see now in Ukraine at Motor City Sign years ago. And I told them exactly what was going to happen, that drones were going to destroy everything. And that's exactly what happened. I've seen YouTube videos of armored destruction, the likes of which have been greater than World War II in comparison. And I told them, I'll build you a new tank. Rotating armored tank shield. They could take all the resources from South Africa, molding it down into 8-inch layers, and then pound it down to 4-inch plates, 40,000 degree temperature steels. I can't even do the math myself on the strength of the kinetic energy of those rotating shields at 40,000 feet per second. To just literally bounce 130 millimeter shells or even nuclear explosions off of their shield, that nobody's going to die in an armored vehicle in my war. And then because of the drone warfare, I told them to put my rail guns on top of the tank, 4 of them. They got phased array radar rotating around. They got optical PlayStation visors inside the tank. They could see 360 degrees. Then you put an AWACS dome right on top of the center of the 4 guns. They got a dual system of integration of observing an object from 2 different points for the guns with atomic ammunition to shoot down and destroy any object 20 miles, 30 miles away from them. I don't expect any of my men. When I send 50,000 tanks into battle, at the end of the war, there's going to be 50,000 tanks coming home. I had my father rage in my face. He released me out of Lima City, Allen County, Ohio, April 21st, 1987. Brought me home, and I'm sitting there watching a Patton movie, and boom, that incited him into a rage that you wouldn't imagine that he put in my face for the memory of his father dying in World War II. Well, I don't want that rage out of anybody's face, in my face in World War III, that when I send your men into battle, they're coming home and no one's going to rage in my face. I don't want to write any letter to any family. Your son died gloriously on the battlefield because he was stupid. Which means only 49,999 tanks are coming home. You know, I could go to the book of Joel, and there's a story of an army that is like the Garden of Eden in front of them, and behind them was nothing but desolation. I had a history as a quarterback. Now, in my flag football league, we played 21 games. You could say we had 4 preseason games and then 17 regular season games. Well, let's just say we lost all 4 of the preseason games, and I was undefeated, 17-0 in the regular season. My Miami Dolphins would be jealous, and the rest of the National Football League would be happy that I never made it there, because I would have never been defeated. Then when I got into just playing junior high school, they put me on the B team. The A team lost all 6 games because they didn't put me in as quarterback. But the B team, we went 5-0-1. We tied only one school, and that was Beer Elementary. And of course, later, when our schools came together, Beer Elementary and Butcher Junior High School went into Mott. At least we were on equal terms. No hard feelings. But after that, I lost 3 games, and another quarterback had to replace me. Somehow the coach didn't know how to direct a talented quarterback, and he set me up on a play to be injured. Damn if I didn't walk into the trap. And then the next quarterback won the next 3 games, which means they were pulling the rug out from underneath my feet. You're fired. Well, that ended my football career. Usually a quarterback is the captain of the team, so understand understand why I'm wearing captain's bars. I don't intend to be defeated in war. Not in the United States, nor in the world. And damned if they're going to try to do it, because they have to trample all over the American people to get to me. And I don't think you want to be trampled. Now, Donald Trump, when he says, I'm going to fire anybody who doesn't measure up in the military, these guys have all dedicated their lives to the defense of the United States, and he's going to say he can fire the entire constitutional military command if he wants, and he's got nobody to defend him. So he's insulted the very heart of our nation in his crass misdemeanor of contempt, saying, I've kidnapped 100% of the American people on the trade tariff taxes, 30%, and I can kidnap the military and fire them if I want. Well, when Truman fired MacArthur, the nation elected General Eisenhower to say, who's going to fire him? So now that Donald Trump has fired the United States military, it's time for me to step up. And Donald Trump can't fire me, because God dedicated my life to the defense of the United States. And I'm not going to have anybody coming up to my face raging that they lost a son in battle when I specifically created the equipment for their survival, that there'll be no casualties. And if they understand their command prerogative, and they maintain their discipline, they will survive. I'm looking at these YouTube videos of Russian soldiers carrying Kalashnikovs, a bandolier of 32 rounds. I guess they're as ignorant. I've read a book a long time ago of how much ammunition it took to kill one soldier in World War II. Artillery rounds, mortar rounds, grenades, machine gun rounds, rifle rounds, tank shells, hundreds, up into the thousands. Just to kill one soldier. And here they only got 32 rounds of ammunition. They're going to be thrown into battle. Cannon fodder. And the news out of the Ukraine is that they decimated those human wave tactics. I've created a smaller ammunition, lighter weight, by which even a soldier can carry 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 rounds of ammunition. Even if just 5,000 rounds kills one man. If they got to kill 5,000 men in an instant, they'll have the ammunition right there to do it. So while a German tank in KF-51 goes up to 130 millimeter rounds in size, they can only carry 68 rounds in their tank. You know, they may have laughed at me 3 decades ago, you're only going to build a 75 millimeter, no more. Because the smaller round size, I can fit 2,000 rounds inside of a McCowan tank. They can start firing on Monday and they'll still be firing to Sunday. They'll carry 500,000 rounds of smaller ammunition for the machine guns on top of the tank. They will not be short of ammunition. And with the electric drive motor and rotating armor generating power, they'll run out of ammunition and food before they run out of motive power to retreat and reload. So, with 2,000 rounds of ammunition, one M4 McCowan tank is equivalent to 29 KF-51 German tanks. I build 50,000 of them. That's like building 1,450,000 tanks because of the equipment equivalents that they carry. The enemy may not even get off a shot before they get destroyed anyways. Especially with the nuclear ballistic railgun in the infantry. Kalashnikovs don't even have the range to strike our troops before we decimate theirs. As I said, I don't intend to lose this war. Donald Trump, well, he just forfeited his presidency. You're fired. Now you need another general. So let me go into discussion here that I heard another eloquent black man belittling the political establishment for demonstratively berating the military command. And they did not have the qualification to do that just because they're elected or appointed officials. As a civilian command. And here they got to insult the intelligence of these men. And I don't have to address them other than they know what to do when they're given the proper equipment to do it with. And I don't expect to send them off riding to death, as George Patton said. You are not going into battle to die for your country. You're going off into battle to make the other poor dumb bastard die for his country. And Donald Trump thinks he can stand there and say, I can kill the military command. You're fired. You know, it's almost like he just forfeited his presidency instantaneously. Who's going to fire me from defending the United States? I'm going to have we the people motivated, mobilized, assembled, signatured, petitioned, Article 5, electing a new president, impeaching Donald Trump from his immunity. The Supreme Court could say Donald Trump is immune, not from we the people. Governors don't want to impeach him. Legislatures don't want to impeach him. Congress doesn't want to impeach him. We the people have that power by our Constitution of law and our Bill of Rights, and we are independent to defend ourselves from being kidnapped by a president committing treason against the United States law, saying that he can violate the law to defend the United States. Well, the only defense of the United States is to obey the law. And he wants to therefore commit his presentation that, guess what? He can violate the law and he can destroy the United States and he's immune from prosecution. Well, what are you going to do, Mr. President, when you've got 280 million people, as over 3/4 of the population of the state citizen legislature, saying, you're not going to kidnap our nation under your authority? So let me go into the reading here that I have established previously. And I'm going to go into my preamble of Book 7, or Book 10, Volume 7, Preamble 2. With or without Article 5, Trump, American armor given England, plan to kidnap states. May as well establish a Lamb of God, Article 5, Convention Assembly for their target. America dying in Jew genocide. Gregory Allen McCowan changing the course of history. Only an oath of God to Gregory Allen McCowan can stop the gates of hell from conquering. You're being kidnapped, as my YouTube video Bill of Rights is now being kidnapped. In other words, they may deny this presentation by Google. They may deny it by YouTube. They may deny it by AT&T or any other internet associated connection to deny you from hearing the truth as intended that God has me delivered to save you. Now, 9/24/2025, 5:52, 26 seconds a.m. In other news, 7 comets are now simultaneously entering the solar system. Only one not mentioned is Apophis comet. So here we have this situation where the solar system has now got 7 comets entering in and going out. Never in history has this ever occurred, or at least recognized as occurring, because only our modern space telescopes can observe this situation. 3I Atlas is now projected on a collision course with Mars. Stay tuned. No one is saying how these 7 comets could affect the trajectory of Apophis to hit the Earth. Lazy Americans despise the oath of God, insulting God the Father and Jesus Christ in heaven, ? The 7 comets are like the 7 stars for the appearance of the Lord God Almighty. This is definitely end times, ? Without an oath of God, none of you see Jesus in heaven. Generation of the damned. There is no designated time of an old heaven and an old earth passing away in Revelation chapter 21, verse 1, ? For which a new heaven and a new earth are established afterwards, coming from heaven, ? Take our last example as clearly evidence in reality, ? You all die very soon, condemned by God without an oath of God to ever see Jesus, as 13,000 years ago, 11,000 BCE, this is 2000 AD, so add 2,000 to 11,000 BCE, is 13,000 years ago, is recorded an extinction event over an earth, ? The earth was so devastated in the extinction event, it took 7,000 years to be cleaned up. This goddamn generation about to die in 3 years and 7 months in April 13, 2029. In other words, all of these comets are going to redirect Apophis to hit the Earth. Some said it just takes a small little rock to strike the Apophis to redirect its trajectory into the Earth. Well, we've got all the confluences of planets aligning and now comets approaching. All this gravitational influence is enough to make Apophis the end of our world. 3 years, 7 months, 6 months. It will take another 7,000 years between the old earth and the new earth for Jesus to resurrect life. So after the destruction of this earth, in just another 3 years, it's going to be 7,000 years between this earth being destroyed again and God being able to resurrect life upon the earth after the destruction. So if you're not in heaven with Jesus, you are actually 7,000 years inside hell itself. Once life resurrected, another 1,000 years in hell for a total of 8,000 tormenting years. Because he's going to let them all come out of hell again just to see the kingdom of Christ Peter. And then they all resurrect and fight against me again. And of course, I'm well prepared for the situation in the future to destroy them again. Once your generation of devils released, you fight the Lord God Christ Peter again in war. That is how much further into the future much of the prophecy war predicted Revelations. So extinction about to occur Why am I knocking my head against the wall of ignorance? Question mark. Jesus wants to know who has an oath of God as acceptable into heaven by extinction. So if you're all going to die, Jesus wants to know who are acceptable into heaven. I'll give a story later about the priesthood lying to the American people, and when they're lying to the American people, those lies are not going to be acceptable to Jesus in heaven. Especially to say that the Jews were forgiven for the murder of Jesus. Yeah, well, 1.5 billion dead Russians by the Jewish people is no excuse to say that the Jews are forgiven. Satan attempted murder of God, and he was thrown out of heaven for the attempted murder. That Jesus came down and had Satan murder him on the earth just to be resurrected to prove that God had been vindicated to throw Satan out of heaven. Now, with the Jewish people trying to murder me 696 times in attempted murder, do you think I necessarily need to forgive the Jewish people? Impossible. Impossible. They're going to fight to the death in a civil war to kidnap the United States, and you're not going to be ashamed to destroy them because they are all convicted already for 352 million Americans killed in their genocide. And you're just the remnant that have to fight them. At least I can baptize you with fire, as John the Baptist says, one comes greater than I who will baptize you in fire. Here comes your fire to be baptized. And you'll be bulletproof, and you'll survive. And you'll say hallelujah. Ancient fables of Christ Peter at the pearly gates of heaven. Jesus gave me an oath. Nostradamus extinction event. When the comet runs trailing a long line of sparks. This could be hypothesis as a sparkler contains sparkler contents explode as sparks. That a collection of radiation on the surface will start dropping off over North America. These to be like Tunguska thermonuclear explosions of 600-mile diameter destruction zones. A rotating comet would then ejaculate these sparks north and south hundreds of miles, creating a wired destruction zone, just a flight path dropping directly down. In other words, the extinction event. After leveling North America into extinction as continues on into an eastern hemisphere, the explosive launches of material spread destruction over Europe, the Middle East, Africa, with a tidal wave of tsunami rooster tail wave following behind to wash over a continent, finally lands in ancient Chinese Emperor Lake of Mercury, a poisonous cloud erupts. How is that for an ending? There's a Chinese emperor creating the extinction of the earth with a huge lake of mercury right in the middle of China. When that comet lands in that mercury pool, you know it's going to take 7,000 years for the earth to get purified. Besides radiation, mercury gas, volcano eruptions of more poisonous gas clouds erupting, shifting continent plates creates massive tsunami waves to drown all mankind. 90% of mankind is within 10 miles of the water. The earth will be so quivering that there'll be massive tsunamis all over the world. People in the islands will all be washed away at sea if they're not on boats. But even if they survive that by being in their boats, ride over the tsunami waves, that poisonous air is going to kill them anyways. Radiation, sulfuric fumes from volcanoes erupting. Not a very pleasant way to die. Destroyed nuclear power plants add radiation poisoning with burned chemical plants. Poison's atmosphere soon reaches into the southern hemisphere, dying in torments. The Earth is lost into an extinction event, April 13th, 2029. Now, the 3I Atlas event. This is 10 billion tons of mass is a spacecraft. Well, actually, they say it's 33 billion tons. Got my literature typing error. It could survive a direct impact with Mars. Created to survive direct impact with Mars because all it has to do is laser blast a hole through the surface, creating a fountain of water coming out through the hole, by which when it goes through the hole, the water is slowing its trajectory that it could actually land on the planet. Whether it does that or not remains to be seen. But news report says that the comet subdivided and flying in formation. This is alien life coming into the planet. Now, it didn't directly challenge the Earth, only because these probably aliens of eternal life that have already been associated with Jesus Christ and know God in heaven, and here they come. Whether we accept them or not. And if we're a hostile environment, which they suspect because of all the Eisenhower nuclear explosions that sent light into the universe, and that light is going. Everybody will know sooner or later that atomic warheads were used in our planetary system, sending those light signals out that this is a hostile environment. Now, what is strange was that its comet tail vented directly to the sun. Now, interesting enough that in its orbit, that's supposedly supposed to slide through the solar system and go beyond, that it may actually be leaving behind their own life. But in the same situation, when they're venting toward the sun, That's in the path of the Apophis comet, that they could change the trajectory of the Apophis comet. If this is an advanced society, an advanced intelligence, they know enough of elementary calculus. You know, the movie Hidden Figures, of where the intelligent black people helped the Apollo program to be successful in their mathematician application. That these aliens would know just enough force applied to the Apophis comet would redirect it right into the Earth. And if there's any intelligent life on Earth, this is the time for them to acknowledge that and save their life. Well, I've been preparing for this a long time with the space fighter jet. I've made stories in prophecies of prediction of Mars Station mission of these aliens arriving. And I made books of Top Gun 4 Web and or Top Gun 3 Web and Top Gun 4 Apophis before these events were to occur. That we're going to be challenged and we're going to have to go into space and take control over that comet from destroying mankind. What is strange was that its comet tail vented directly to the sun, while maneuvering to strike Mars, directly adjusting Apophis comet to hit Earth. Both 3I Atlas and Apophis as on a far side of the sun, out of sight of Earth observation. We don't see Apophis comet again until January. (2027). That's not a lot of time to prepare for when that comet is aligned to strike the Earth, because that would be just 2 years before April 2029. As 3I Atlas plunges into the subterranean lakes to survive impact, Apophis is directed to kill the Earth. Somebody's a little bit itsy bitsy more intelligent to kill than our own stupidity of mankind. With such a high rate of speed, the only way for 3I Atlas to stop and take up residence, immediately stop by placing itself on a planet for landing and not pass by our solar star. While Trump plans to kill Christians, aliens are taking up residence to kill a Jewish world. If these are my ancient relatives from Krypton, think about the Superman signature there. Come to rescue their favorite son now? Mars Station Mission. Available on many of my book lists when I was putting them up for sale to read. I still have my original Wells Fargo account. I will see income if any are reading them. Unless they want to be thieves, you can tell me later. For a prosecution, I earned so little money from them it was pathetic. Now they are a history, evolving in our time. Mars Station Mission, 2057-2061 AD, Archaeologist Genesis. Well, I can write another book prior to this, but we're living the event. Here come the aliens. This is the Genesis. They may have eternal life already. They may already be glorifying God in heaven, and they're not coming down to actually destroy the earth. They could have. They could have steered their craft through space and come down directly and strike the earth and kill mankind. That would have been hostile. But in this regard, they're going into another planetary system where there is no life, and they can occupy that without resistance. But yet challenge the earth by readjusting the flight path of Apophis to say that there's no intelligent life on earth, there's no Son of God, there's no oath of God, they're all going to die. And they just got to wait 7,000 years for the earth to be rehabilitated for them to occupy it. And then there's Mars Station Mission 4244, 4248 AD, Archaeologist Nemesis. This is another battle over the earth in the solar system. So, and then I got another book. It's in the process. I wrote a few chapters in it, but I didn't complete it. Mars Station Mission 6431, 6435 AD, Archaeologist. And then I left the last name off and said, here's a contest. Who can guess that word for the end of the title? In my classic books of Discovering Life on Mars, Only I Survive Conflict on Earth, a subterranean habitation is described exactly as in 3I Atlas will create impacting Mars. My books are in the midst of the story, even as the first Star Wars trilogy is in the midst of it. So I'm seeing the beginning of my story as I've yet to write an end for my story itself. But it does stretch over 6,000 years into my third volume, still incomplete. In other words, guess what, folks? Somehow this earth is going to be saved. We're going to survive. I wrote the books. There's your prophecy. We're not going to have a world destroyed, and somebody's going to be saving it. But it does stretch over the next 6,000 years in my third volume, still uncompleted work. It is a drama of incredible fantasy that is now just beginning to be realized by me, prophecy. I had a real dramatic ending of alien life rescues humanity that I had yet to completely write. But as it is, if you want me dead, aliens are here to condemn death as faithless in God. In other words, these aliens have a God in heaven themselves. God created all life, and they're obviously existing in that faith. Which makes Top Gun 4 Apophis story, another movie potential, very real. If I do not create my space fighter jet P-61 for flight to space to deflect Apophis trajectory, ? Here's Donald Trump. He says he thinks he created the space fighter jet while Donald Trump was in bed with Jeffrey Epstein. And I was in Motor City Sign after he kidnapped 56,000 models out of New York City in 1986, and he was continuing to be in bed with Jeffrey Epstein while I was in Motor City Sign from 1988 to 1993. I was creating a space fighter jet while he was sleeping in bed, and now, 40 years later, he said he had nothing to do with creating a space fighter jet. Well, at least I'm a 65-year-old virgin, and I wasn't in bed with anybody. And I was defending the United States for a future that would save the world from extinction. And Donald Trump is sitting there berating me. You're all fired. He just lost his military. He just lost his presidency. You Americans don't have to be kidnapped by the president anymore. In fact, you can sign the petition of Article 5 of Gregory Allen McCowan, 2863-2893, Article 5 Convention, 280 signatures, and you can kidnap the president and throw him on his face out of the White House. In fact, he won't be able to get on his face because he'll have a noose around his neck and he's going to be hanging from the tree, and he won't have to have his face thrown into the ground. And I can be President of the United States April 30th, 2026. And you Americans, you can call all the governors cowards, all the legislatures elected cowards and communists. You can impeach them all. You can impeach the police and the sheriff and tell them you're no longer needed, because if you're going to stand there and attempt to kidnap the United States citizens, and here's a government of kidnappers, they're gone. Now, as I've said in my Reading the Riot Act, I don't condone violence. I don't order violence. And I'll take responsibility for no violence. But you have the right of self-defense. And if the governors want to defend their lives and the state legislatures want to defend their lives, and I've wrote the laws in all my books of their authority. And if they don't accept that because they sold their soul to Jewish billionaires and you're not going to kill the Jewish people, well, excuse me. They attempted murder, and you can't tell me to forgive them for that, because they want to accomplish the completion of kidnapping and killing the United States in genocide, and nobody has to surrender to the President of the United States to be fired from their right to life. And that's what exactly he's doing. Kidnapped 200,000 aliens in their state citizen rights, kidnapped and threw out in the street 250,000 Americans from their federal employment serving the American people. That kidnapping is unforgivable. And now he wants to say to the United States military, you're all prisoners of war. I'm going to put you in Leavenworth if you are fired. Well, that's a thrilling adventure. You get a fully paid, all expenses Trip to Leavenworth when you're fired. Disneyland in the Midwest. You can understand why the military is snickering at him. They won't do that to me because I've been giving them the weapons and their experience of their self-sacrifice from my self-sacrifice. That, as Abraham Lincoln said, this nation shall not perish from upon the earth. So, with that, we go to the continued reading here. If I do not create my space fighter jet P-61 for flight to space and deflect Apophis' trajectory, 3I Atlas have already directed Apophis to annihilate the world as a result of contempt. While an alien world, 3I Atlas schedules Apophis directed for a world annihilation, extinction. The only reason you survive is Gregory Allen McCowan as your president space fighter jet. I have to write another chapter of actually landing on and rotating Apophis common arrival. As all the jets take their places, they synchronize their jet thrusters on and off to push a new trajectory. That is a rotating comet that each have only a short time each rotation to use thrusters. Once the Apophis comet has been given the appropriate trajectory to skirt over Earth, the space fighter jets can detach and return to Earth re-entry for their landing heroes. Now, eventually, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to redirect Apophis to strike the moon. And that'll end the threat. And it'll be coming around again in 2036. And we'll have a little bit better capability by then to make sure that Apophis is going to have a glorious moment of kissing the moon. Anyways, my energy drink. But at least the new alien life on Mars will know I'm alive and in control of my Earth. Now, Jesus will not be remiss in letting them know that I'm upon the Earth is why they are not destroying humanity, because he's given me a throne of the earth. And these aliens are not in here to disrupt the authority of Jesus Christ in heaven and his throne, of which they already have eternal life, and of which this humanity has the opportunity for their eternal life. So while Gregory Allen McCowan has initiated protocol to be Article 5, President Civil War, because Donald Trump is not going to surrender to the White House as a communist. He's been given a mandate by the people. He's only got 25% of the people. He no longer got a mandate. He wants to kidnap the United States with a minority of communists. Well, we don't have to go anywhere in the world. The communists are here to attempt the kidnapping of the United States. And if you didn't understand the kidnapping of American children from 1970 to now, and even after Jeffrey Epstein was killed in prison in 2022, 395,000 Americans were kidnapped victims, disappeared. The kidnapping of communism in America has not ended. And that's their vote. That's their vote to say, we don't have an oath of God, we can kidnap you. That's where the American people decide to say that, no, you don't. We got somebody to defend us from being kidnapped and have our future posterity of our children destroyed because of their ideology to say that they are the government, when we, the people, are the government. And you're going to express that. And you're going to make it known. And it's going to be a historic act that George Washington put in the Constitution for we, the people, to perform. I have many parts of the story already written that are sequential to events unfolding, including Codename Alabama, America's last August battle against military aggression, which was classified because it included the P-61E space fighter jet as part of Material 2000. The space fighter jet design discussed in my Detroit motor sign tutoring for a future event to come. So as a more comprehensive review of my own written prophecy is coming down from space, my Mars Station mission books were written from 2014. Nobody can say I fabricated it now. It's all copyright. Even though sealed from a public classified, I have a copy of Codename Alabama P-61E. Bastards still want to drag me out of my residence to prison? They died totally a half mile away. They deserve the eternal hell with their children born of criminal heritage without a mercy. Without an oath of God, they do not give a damn to announce the Lord God Christ Peter. God the Father knows their heart and will strike them down to eternal perdition regardless. My first effort they despised and kidnapped. They hate God and God hates them to be killed. Gregory Allen McCowan, Houston, Texas, 2863-2893. Now, I'm not going to go into the reading of the next verse. I've already wrote a commentary of that in the presentation of my YouTube video, the first video where it says 283-2893 when it says should have been said 2863-2893. But recognizing that I repeat it several times. Now, the next letter is the book 10, volume 7, preamble 3. In other words, I've got a book 7 coming out, but it got interrupted by an incident. I got the computer repaired, and the book is still there to be accomplished and delivered later. This is only to a limited audience because unless they send it out beyond their possession to read, that's the extent of the reading. It's like less than 500 addresses. So let me go through this next book a little bit quicker because it's like, as it shows, 20 pages, 26 pages. And I want to get it done in about 40 minutes. So it's going to be a constant reading effort here. And just like Nostradamus, it seems bouncing around, but it goes from, this is 9/26/2025, 5:15:51 a.m., 9:23, 2 hours, 48 minutes, 52 seconds p.m., 9/19/2025, 10:17, 31 a.m., 11/19/2024, 9 hours, 36 minutes, 51 seconds a.m. The throne of God, the Lord God Almighty Christ Peter, Gregory L. McCowan, unread National War Declaration of Emergency 869-403-775-03-552-1049-49. Read Ye Heavens, Travailing, Roy Times Press, Book 7, Volume 7, Book 10, Volume 7, Preamble 3. Now, I divided up the Detroit Free Press. Keeping all the letters of Free Press, Detroit Free Press, and just rearranged it in a title of the files. Revelation chapter 13, verse 9, if any men have an ear, let him hear. New game plan, folks. The first 2 videos were raw and unscripted. No, the third, fourth, and this is the 5th. I have an HDMI cord I can attach to my computer and do a split screen. While being recorded, I have a teleprompter for a television to read my script. This does not mean I will not deliver my script by email for you to read otherwise, but it does suggest I can go all the way back to Book 1, Volume 1, and start from the very beginning of the 100 volumes to educate the United States. The nation can see the development of my writing skills and character development, as each segment of a book volume will then be summarized in between for review. Since my written language of characters identified also develops accordingly through time, some portions of history obscure then become clarified later for better understanding. But it is this education curve of my applying thought into circumstance comprehending. As for the pictures to be attached, they will be placed as they were in the book volumes. Where I mentioned the pictures in my book volumes I did not attach, I put in the video. This will be a historical performance, the likes of which have never been conceived of before. Now, all these books can be ascertained out of the Sixth Circuit Court in Pontiac because I sent the files there by Article 4. They couldn't destroy them. And if they did, there's hell to pay for that. I have my own means that I could bring out the files and of all the literature that I delivered and preserve it. And that's what I'm going to do in the near future here. But I have 7 months to perform this feat. To get the Book of Life, Bill of Rights, Article 5, Assembly petition signatures rolling, here's the opening address of the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. In my early age, March 30th, June 8th, 1980, calling by God from Michigan State University, this is a vast kidnapping of my brides in a time that I spiritually heard tormented to death. Others were only saved alive because they became porn stars as financially kidnapped. By lost a portion law of wealth, circumstance as neither corrupt or sinners condemned, as Jesus said of Mary Magdalene, who shall cast the first stone? Neither do I condemn. So that anew we the people can return virtue back to Christian American people restored, regardless of voting privilege as I had discussed in the Constitution laws over time, later, that every state citizen or even alien is a legal legislature member to sign Article 5 petition. That even 2 million federal prisoners and 3 million military recruit prisoners can sign my petition. Especially those on death row. Want to sign a book of life? Question. Not that I would let them go free from their crimes of blood, question mark, but at least they can express their sorrow before Jesus begging mercy. I have been murdered and resurrected 5 times by those who would desire to sign that in the coming Passover day of Jesus in the clouds, a day they cannot go beyond. Even as Moses had performed a murder, Jesus will not allow him to pass over the Jordan River. Then Moses is born King David to perform the murder of Goliath to establish Jerusalem. Future American Christian Jacob, ancient Israel, is not Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England. In other words, Americans are the children of Jacob, and England are the children of Esau. We're no longer brothers. So only those who read my book volumes actually understand what I had written cryptically. So let me pick up where I left off. And there's George Patton making the comment, we are 2 people divided by a common language. It's the children of Jacob, Christian Israel, and there's the Esau Jew, Edom, Egypt, slave masters of England. They want to kidnap the United States, and that's what Donald Trump is, a king of England. He wants to make you all American slaves 100%. And I don't think he's got long to remain in the presidency attempting the kidnapping of the United States. Listing a volume of potential signers of parents' babies listed to age ready to die in their day, betrayed Democratic voters and betrayed Republican Christian voters as defecting. Why support a prophecy president destined to eternal perdition, refusing a book of life? Question mark. The number of signatures will swell in the registration certificate to almost 290 million souls. The Book of the Dead die-hearted kidnappers looking at the list for targeting murder. I got an interjection of a comment here. These Jew England, United Nations kidnappers killed 352 million citizens. Only reason American Christians do not know of Jew slaughtering is a criminal Congress act. Destroy Article 4 public records, deny state citizens no communist Jews murder in states, so that these Jew New York City communist kidnapping murderers cannot surrender to any God. Trump leads Jews 55 years since 1970. Jew New York City kidnapping is now their kidnapping president. Trump to lead a United Nations England Jew Empire communist invasion to kidnap states. So Jew rabbi kidnappers are readily stripped naked and refusing an oath of God presented. Resides Jew illicit Satan worship, a murderer as God, served by as Jew rabbi communists. Jew rabbi communists cannot hide their worship of Satan, a murderer of Jesus, being history. That to follow the trail of this historic murder by Jew rabbi communists is invading the United States. End of the line. The buck stops here. We the people. So we have to see a crime by an Esau Jew, Edom, Egypt, England, ancient slave master rabbi. While Trump has paid $5 billion Bitcoin trust, non-transferable, non-exchangeable value, like kidnapping a bribe, as will be his to keep of any fool placing trust in Trump value. Trump then kidnaps all United States citizen legislatures by 30% trade tariff taxes stolen, covering his exchange with cutting family taxes 5% to distract from wealth being lost. Social Security retirees can get a gift card of $3,000, but $1,000 of that is returned by trade tariff taxes. Trump big beautiful bill sting. While Trump raises trade tariff taxes by 30% average, Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England do also react. In matching the rise of foreign trade consumer goods and prices is a conspiracy created. Esau, Jew, Egypt, England seized control of Wall Street, as I previously described. Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England, New York City, Wall Street, then illegally applied these trade tariff taxes on states. By raising prices on interstate consumer goods to match prices forced on foreign commodity, this is placing international trade tariff taxes directly on interstate trade as a price hike being a tax. This Trump conspiracy is all illegal in our United States Citizen Legislature Constitution law. Article 1, Section 9, Clauses 4, 5, and 6. 1787 Constitution. Now, we already read that in Article 5, the fourth clause of Article 1 of the 9th section cannot be violated. No capitation or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. And of course, they closed the consensus and sealed it in Congress, so how do we know? They can do anything they want. They're going to violate the law, kidnap the American people, and you don't know the American people being kidnapped. because they don't show you the consensus of all the kidnap victims, especially those 395,000 that were kidnapped in 2022. That's equivalent to the entire casualty list of 400,000 Americans in World War II. Can you imagine? In 2022, we lost 400,000 Americans in a single year without a shot being fired in resistance against a government of kidnappers. A government of kidnappers. There's Trump leading a government of kidnappers without a shot being fired. I think he is about to be surprised soon that you can sign that Article 5 petition for Gregory Allen McCollum Article 5 convention to be elected president. It's like firing a shot. You just put your name, your little baby's name, your little children's name, your little teenagers' names. They're all legislature members. You put your old parents' names on there. You put the aged. And of course, all the working stiffs can put their names on there because they want to be paid more anyways for their effort. Gold Machine's going to do that simply. But when the majority of the American people say, you're not going to kidnap us, now you've got 280 million shots in resistance by signatures alone. And if they want to go anywhere above that and say, our government can shoot to kill and kidnap, well, they're inviting the violence, not me. Clause 5, Article 1, Section 9, Clause 5. No tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. Now I put it in a quotation. A law Trump, Jew, New York City, England, Wall Street violates raising prices parallel to foreign trade tariff tax 30%. In other words, Wall Street is just going to raise the prices to match the foreign prices as adding in the trade tariff tax for their own pockets. This is violation of the Constitution of the United States. Armed robbery by a government. And Donald Trump is like laughing in your face. I kidnapped 100% of the American people, and you're all going to be stolen 30% of your wealth. You're all prisoners in Donald Trump's America. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 6. No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obligated to enter, clear, or pay duties in another. So, in the time of George Washington, trade, usually there was no highways, no railroads, no airports. Trade went by ships between states and between ports. So, extending this into highways and railroads and airports, delivery and transport from one state to another, there's no regulation and no taxation. And yet, because Wall Street kidnapped, or England, Esau Jew, Egypt, England slave masters kidnapped Wall Street, they're putting Donald Trump's trade tariff tax of 30% on their property goods interstate in violation of the law in regulating that exchange, that they can go from one state to another and charge you 30% extra, and Donald Trump is just committing armed robbery, kidnapping the United States. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, he put 100% tax on foreign commodities of pharmaceutics, so that when Wall Street controlling the pharmaceuticals being transferred in between states, they're going to add in Trump's trade tariff tax of 30% regardless, in violation of the law, putting it on the price of the pharmaceutics. They're going to deliver you at a higher rate the price of their poison to kill you, because no one else is going to be allowed to send you healthy drugs when they can poison you with their drugs. The Donald Trump captivity of the United States is a federal prison. All the federal prisoners are only going to have drugs created in the United States. Excuse me, Mr. Trump, it's just a number of days I'm counting here until you're out of the office. It looks like in my time here, I'm only going to get part of the way through this preamble. 3, book 7, book 10, volume 7, preamble 3, and I'll have to do a 6th video to complete it. So, it's quite a dramatic book, but you'll appreciate the story eventually. But it's like I got to interject just some comments in between what I do read from my writing. And only because I got to tell the American people, Donald Trump thinks he's going to kidnap the United States and he's immune from prosecution. And we, the people, are going to tell him, no, he's not. He's going to hang from the old oak tree for conspiracy to commit armed overthrow of the United States. He's already fired the military, so it's like, thank you very much. I'll replace you as president and be more than adequate for the American people. I'll give him my fireside chats. So I go over in the next literature the crimes of Donald Trump, or his history, that say they're all lies, and he's a liar telling lies. So whatever you want to believe, the facts are there that he can't deny, and they've been performed in his shameless disgrace So, here's Article 1, Section 9, Clause 6. No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce. How about that? Congress can't regulate it, but Wall Street controlling the property, Jew England having kidnapped Wall Street, they create their own regulation, and Donald Trump is doing their regulation by raising foreign prices so Wall Street could raise their prices of our commodities to their foreign prices forced by Donald Trump's trade tariff tax. That the regulation by Jew England on Wall Street is actually committing armed robbery of the United States in violation of the Constitution. So, no preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another. Well, when you got Wall Street controlling the ports, and you got Wall Street controlling the internet, and Wall Street controlling the highways, and Wall Street controlling the railroads, they set their own prices regardless of whatever tax. And when Donald Trump adds the tax onto the foreign goods, they just add the price onto the American goods to match their foreign goods, and that's a tax in itself, in violation of law. And Donald Trump isn't making anything cheaper. In fact, when he quarantined the United States with 100% taxation on foreign pharmaceutics, that Donald Trump can dictate any price of the pharmaceutics in the United States he wants. 100%. By April 30th, 2026, he will no longer be looking after your health. Now, Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England, New York City, Wall Street, now applying a Trump trade tariff tax 30% to states. By monopoly control of Fortune 500 corporations are now a conspiracy to defraud citizens. International trade tariff tax of 30% are being applied by New York City, Wall Street, Jew England in price hikes. The price hikes by Jew England, Wall Street are illegal tax on interstate trade exchange, illegally superseding state legislature elected without ratification as a communist dictator. So how did Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England, rabbi slave masters evolve to kidnap our states? You see, 1775 war was a battle against taxation without representation. Now Donald Trump is committing taxes on the American people, and there's no ratification or representation certifying those taxes as lawful. It's just a kidnapping. The American people are being kidnapped by a government of England, and they are not our representatives. No governor voted for it, no state legislature voted for those taxes, not even Congress. The puppets in Congress, the sound of music, The puppet stage. The Congress puppets didn't even ratify his dictatorship of 30% taxes and then 100% on pharmaceutics. Really? No one ratified the president to be kidnapping the United States, and yet he said by the election he got a mandate to kidnap the American people. So who gave him that mandate? The Federal Reserve Bank of the Jew England? Yeah, the Federal Reserve Bank of Jew England. Charles III said, I want you to kidnap the United States. Well, there it is, folks. We are not being represented by a president who dictates taxation without representation. And nothing but that we had ever voted on in anybody. This is why the governors are all going to be impeached, while the legislatures are all going to be impeached. Because they represent nobody. They just stand back and watch England kidnap the United States and commit armed robbery. So I still have to read you the Riot Act. Remain calm. You can get hot under the collar just like I am. But we are still a civilized population. I do not condone violence. I do not order violence. I will take no responsibility for violence. I do not own a gun. $696 attempted murders. And it's like, Johnny come lately, why didn't you do this a long time ago? Well, my own assessment is the same thing as you do. That's why God wants his prophecy to be accomplished as he predicted it to be performed. And in that regard, I may be Superman, bulletproof, but the prophecy is right on schedule. Never too late. So how did Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England, rabbi, slave masters evolve to kidnap our saints? Trump! After Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt had released Jacob's children, Israel's slave, vows of revenge. Same as when Jacob had been given the blessing by Isaac to Jacob, Esau vowed revenge. Jacob, George Washington, 1775-1783 war. Esau, Jew, Edom, England, vow revenge. They lost the 1775 war, and England still wants to conquer the United States. Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt of Mount Seir / Idumea, Deuteronomy chapter 2. You can read Deuteronomy chapter 2, King James Version. Esau controlled Mount Seir of Idumea after they killed all the Horites. How was that? Kidnap a nation and murder it and took possession. Now here's the Esau Jews wanting to kidnap America and kill the American people. Their heritage has been breeding for a long time, 2,500 years. Now, Mount Seir Idumea kill Israel in Ezekiel chapter 35, verses 3 through 5, listed 35, 3 through 5. The marriage of Jacob, Israel to Babylon destroyed. Now, Abraham married into Babylon, Isaac married into Babylon, Jacob married into Babylon. Jacob was Israel, they married into Babylon. Now, when Israel is killed, Babylon is offended because they're the marriage to Babylon. Now, this incites Babylonian King Nebuchadnezzar. King Nebuchadnezzar, Gregory Allen McCowan, the bride of Israel, Brooke Shields, kidnapped. All right, that's what happened, folks. This is ancient history repeating itself in another generation. Where I went up to Brooke Shields, she got kidnapped the next day, and they replaced her with an imposter, a Greek Jew, look-alike. And it's written in the prophecies of Nostradamus, Los, look-alike. In other words, they kidnapped her. And the imposter, being a Jew, had nothing to do with me, and the imposter, being a Jew, wanted to kill me. And all the women in New York City in 1986 said, that's not Brooke Shields. What happened to her? That's an imposter. And then all 56,000 of those women who saw the witness were themselves kidnapped to cover up the crime of Brooke Shields being kidnapped. And Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump generation of kidnapping the United States was at hand, the kings of fornication. Now, King Nebuchadnezzar sends an army of Babylon in his first year upon Jerusalem, Ezekiel 14:21, to kill Jerusalem. Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, England, Old Jerusalem, controlled by murder, America, New Jerusalem. Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, Old Jerusalem escaped to land in Anglo-Saxon England Islands, 587 BCE. 587 BCE. So when Nebuchadnezzar went in to destroy Jerusalem for the Esau Jews' murdering of Israel into extinction, as their family, they were family. Israel and Babylon were family together. And so King Nebuchadnezzar went in and destroyed the city. But the Jews, the murderous Jews, escaped out of Jerusalem with the stolen literature of the Old Testament up to Jeremiah and took it to England with them. And then the Jews murdered England in 1600 years. The Jews are starting to multiply and develop and expand in life until they actually kidnapped England and murdered it. Now it's just an island of Jews. Esau, Jew, Edom, Egypt, Old Jerusalem army after 1600 years conquer Anglo-Saxon England. In 1066 AD, two brothers' armies fight for a throne. Jew army enters into their battle and kills them both. Esau, Jew, Edom, Old Jerusalem imposter claims the throne of England as William the Conqueror from Normandy. To help kill Anglo-Saxon England, Jew throne brings North African 70 AD exiles, 1070 AD. 1,000 years of exiles of Jews in North Africa. There's AD 68 to AD 70 rebellion against Rome and Jerusalem was defeated, the Second Temple destroyed by the Romans, the Jews defeated, the Jews went north, or the Jews went to Africa. The Jews went in two directions out of the region to escape the Romans destroying their insurrection. So here's the murderers of Jesus Christ with the mark of the beast being scattered upon the face of the earth, and all they can do as a family of Jews is commit murder, invade nations and murder them. So they conquered England. So to help kill Anglo-Saxon England, the Jew throne brings in the North African 70 AD exile, 1070 AD. So here's 1,000 years, 70 AD to 1070 AD. Why did the Jews come from North Africa in to England without a battle? Because the Jews controlled the throne of England in 1066, killing the two brothers, and then claimed the throne under false pretext with an impostor, so that the Jews controlling the throne of England could bring in the Jews who were never invited into England. In fact, the Jews weren't even invited into France. They were in exile in North Africa, and no nation wanted the Jews. So how did the Jews suddenly come out of North Africa 1,000 years later, out of exile, into England? Because the Jews had been there 1,600 years from 587 BCE, and in 1066 AD at the Battle of Hastings, the Jews came into the battle late with a fresh army, killed both armies, both brothers, claimed the throne, and to secure themselves from being invaded from France, claimed that William of Normandy had conquered. And that was a bold lie. Not only was that a bold lie, they brought the army of Jews from Africa out of Africa into England to help them kill the English people. And that was 600 years of the Dark Ages, where genocide was pervading upon all of the English people being murdered by Jews. Now we got Jew England invading the United States, and all the priests said, oh, they're the glorious sons of God. Yeah, really. A Jewish population of murderers are the glorious people of God invading the United States to commit genocide. These are the Dark Ages in America. When they sealed that consensus in the 1970s as to violate Article 4, public records, this became the Dark Ages of the Jewish people murdering the United States. As the North African Jew, Old Jerusalem Rabbi Army of 70 AD insurrection, 1,000 years in exile, the Dark Ages is the next 600 years. Murder of Anglo-Saxon England from 1066 to 1666 AD by Jews. When London burned down in 666, it was the extermination of Anglo-Saxon England. Anglo-Saxon England had to escape Jew England with a King James Bible in tow to America. Fast forward to the future in Tom Cruise Samurai Anthology. While ancient samurai traditions are in conflict with the modernized Yamato nation of Japan, the American trade had blossomed to modernize Japan with American industrial capacity. China's emperor recognized this capacity, desiring trade with Jew England for reciprocal. Recognizing the trade desire, Jew England, as Alaska later, demanded Hong Kong Islands, formalized July 1st, 1897, for a 100-year lease of Hong Kong Bastion as Jew England title. So we see all this confluence of the industrialization of the world reaching into the Asian nations. The modernization of Japan was that China wanted to equal, Admiral Perry going into Tokyo with American trade, and then the Chinese wanted the same thing to be accomplished, and they did it with England. Well, I'm going to end this. This is another 2-hour segment, and I'll do another one to accomplish the rest of the reading of this. Stay tuned. Anyways, give you my blessings for your Article 5 petition of Gregory L. McCowan, 2863-2893, for the Article 5 Constitution Convention for we the people to actually perform your desire for the election of a president and not an appointed Federal Reserve Bank criminal conspiracy to kidnap the United States of Donald Trump, which you can impeach. And guess what? With my gold machine, we're going to throw the entire Federal Reserve Bank into the trash heap. And you'll all retain the wealth that you deserve. And Nostradamus says it. The workers of the dirt will increase their wealth tenfold than before. Which, one way to keep a happy population is to give them more concerns on how they're spending their wealth and enjoying it than being criminals trying to steal somebody else's. Till next time, there will be a short next time. I will continue this. Thank you very much. And you have a good evening. What time is it now? Oh, it's actually October 5th, Central Standard Time. 6 a.m. in the morning, exactly. 2025. Gregory L. McCowan, Houston, Texas. God bless you. Bye-bye.